How much do you love the Borderlands series? If you're anything like me, I would run my ass home as soon as possible just to be able to farm for some legendary weapons. For the OP build that you were trying to make, only for probably those weapons to not really work the way you thought and the build to kind of be okay and not great. But with the addition of Borderlands 2 having a very convenient duplication glitch, it made our lives a lot less worrisome. But with the Borderlands 4 trailers just dropping, it had me excited for the franchise again, but also left me kind of baffled at why I'm getting so hyped. I mean, Borderlands 3 had some massive problems, like a lot. But ultimately, this is the conclusion I came to. How would you score Borderlands 3 when it comes to gunplay, especially comparing it to past games? I would say, at the very least, it's an improvement. Maybe like an 8.5 as far as quality out of 10. Okay, what about level design and overall prettiness? I would say a solid 8, maybe at times a 9. And lastly, how about character balance and like build diversity at endgame? I would say 10, especially considering how rough the previous games were. Although I am a filthy Moe's main in Borderlands 3, so your mileage may vary. But what's going on here? When I think back to Borderlands 3, why do I think back at how bad and frustrating it is? Especially with all those 8s and 10s. Well, let me ask you this. If you were to rate the story, what would it be? For me, the story did something shocking. I've never experienced this before. It wasn't just a 2 or a 3, but -4 or 5, meaning even though the gunplay was an improvement, it was devoured by how terrible hearing these stupid, annoying people chirp in your ear about literally nothing. And it was always the same kind of nothing. Not like a certain someone who is whimsically reminiscing about how he scooped a guy's eyeballs out with a spoon. As more and more time goes on, I realized just how good the story of Borderlands 2 was. And I'm sure this is something you've heard before, but hear me out. I'm not exactly referring to Handsome Jack in that, although I do think he was great. I'm talking about the overall story of Borderlands 2, Scooter, Bloodwing, Brick, Tina, Torg, and so much more. Just with few names, I can set off a chain reaction of feelings and images in your brain. That's what a good story does. And I'm not here to talk about how Ava was literally the worst, or how the Calypso twins sucked so bad. But instead, I want to talk about something that I feel like is the big make or break for the series, especially when it comes to Borderlands 4 for me. If I could boil it down, I think there is a massive misread of what makes Borderlands so special. I'll sum it up in this one sentence. Borderlands' story is not about memes and silliness, but instead is about the hero's journey. A journey where chaotic good runs up against lawful evil, or at least that was Borderlands 2's take on it. You see, if you've been paying attention to any of Gearbox's decisions recently, with the aforementioned Borderlands 3, or the Borderlands movie, and the Borderlands franchise as a whole, to me it's pretty clear that Gearbox thinks Borderlands is only about chaos and silliness. At every single turn, Gearbox always sacrifices tension and character development and meaning for a silly laugh or a silly dick joke. And contrary to what I think a lot of people think, I don't think that's what Borderlands is at all. It's not just about memes and silliness, or at least not to me, and I don't think for you either. Would you mind doing me a favor? Think back to what happened in Borderlands 2. What memories come to mind? I imagine when we first opened our eyes and seen Claptrap chirping at us in a blizzard pops into your head. Maybe the moment where we first met Hammerlock, but there's these tentpole moments such as Mordecai and Brick when you first meet them, Tina when you first arrive at Sanctuary, and when you first meet the Firehawk. And much bigger moments like when Scooter sacrifices himself for all of Sanctuary, or the betrayal of Angel, as well as the death of Roland. Just now, right there, I said 2 moments that otherwise meant nothing to a lot of people who have never played those games, but to you, within one sentence, you're taken back to those moments and feel probably something. Now, if you wouldn't mind, let me ask you this. What happened in Borderlands 3? Yeah. Well, first of all, we weren't there, so that's something. We weren't in cutscenes. It was asinine and frustrating as hell. We're just watching horrible things happen, and then we kill gods, and then come back into cutscene, and we're not there, watching more things happen. We crush like 16 skyscraper-like monsters, and we're still not there, letting horrible shit happen all the time. Love it, hate it. What is going on? I can't even, how did that even go through? Anyways, when it comes to Borderlands 3, there's a small chance that maybe you think of a faint memory of like the Calypso twins, probably the most core memory, or more like a trauma memory. Maya getting Thanos snapped by the twins while we sit there and do nothing. You might also remember the Tree Guardian, because that was kind of huge, you know, giant monster that we can fight, huge, all that stuff. But what else? Anything? My guy, do you remember that Tannis became a fucking siren? I didn't. I had to hunt for that memory. That's a big thing that none of us seem to draw on. It's just like empty. I played the game 4 times because I thought the gameplay was great. Holy shit, that is a testament to how terrible Despite how big that plot point is, most people have no recollection when I ask them what happened in the story of Borderlands 3. Why? because it was unearned and downright unreasonable. I think this hits at why Borderlands 2 was so good. And no, it's not just because of Handsome Jack being a good villain, but instead, Borderlands 2 had a great understanding of the hero's journey. Let me ask you this. What is this story? Is it about plot? How about the friends you make along the way? Or maybe, just maybe, the core of every story is a person overcoming an internal issue that they have that they must overcome in order to come out the other side stronger or have it changed in some way. Imagine if you watched a guy who's the same for like 6 seasons and never changes. So knowing that, think about Borderlands 2's story. You start off with this eccentric millionaire trying to kill you, only to barely make it out alive, and connect with other people who are also surviving Handsome Jack. And after helping each other out and meeting various characters, you find yourself surrounded by charismatic weirdos, and you start to connect with them in some ways. All the while, the main character not saying many words at all, having the effect of everything being reflected on you as a player rather than your Vault Hunter per se. But wait, there's this friendly guide in your ear helping you along your way. But to our surprise, she betrays us. And in doing so makes you responsible for putting all of your newfound friends in danger. And as the city is about to go up in flames, a charming mechanic who always treated you right gives his life to save everyone while screaming his iconic line, "Catch a ride," earning such an absolute badass hero's death. His death and dying line being earned. I'm looking at you, Maya. This moment changing our player's tune now. It's no longer just about trying to stop this eccentric billionaire who wants to find a weird vault, and instead is about getting even. We now have an internal issue. You see, Borderlands 2 knew how to create an internal issue for not only you as a Vault Hunter, but you as a player. Something that we so deeply need to overcome, not even for Sanctuary or whatever, but for us. Creating more than one reason for us to need to get even. Think about how many reasons were created. The death of Bloodwing, Roland, and so on. But the previous writers knew exactly what was necessary to not only motivate you as a player and your Vault Hunter, instead of just having an iconic and beloved character like Maya, Thanos Snap, dying like a dog by a seemingly extremely ungrateful and undeserving child. Pause, I said I wasn't talking about Ava, but anyways, I would just like to say that I think this could have worked, by the way. The idea of Ava. Imagine if Maya died in a badass way like Scooter, and Ava took up the torch, and we basically got to see like child Ava grow into an absolute badass. They could have made it very poetic and showed that people like Maya never really die. There's always going to be a person like that in this world. There's always going to be bad people in this world. It literally could have been anything but spending 7 hours being fucking nothing but toxic, and then at the very end of the game, they finally become not complete and utter garbage. My God, who decided? I'm sorry, how did this get through? Do you not let anyone playtest your game at all? It's so long. Anyways, sorry. Another thing, I think the whole Calypso twins could have possibly worked as well. You could have had fun with it being like a content creator that was very brash and yet provocative to watch, aka a kick-like streamer. And her brother could have been that fake as hell yet charming, good guy content creator, the one that always says he loves you and then just tries to sell you shit and then is like monstrous behind the scenes. You know, one that probably plays Minecraft and messages minors. My point is that you create internal issues for the player and give them routes in which they can overcome it. Nothing like that happens in any conceivable way in Borderlands 3. It's the moment they start building through this, they take a hard turn into just dumb shit comedy that makes no sense. And again, you can be funny. Borderlands 2 is the best example of this, of like these big tentpole moments where they're building tension and they take it seriously, and then it's right back to jokes and dumb shit. But you have to take seriously the momentum that you're building in a direction and not just fucking deplete it in no way for a shitty joke. What's all the more frustrating with all of this is that I think the writers are better than this, especially when it comes to some of the story that we found in the DLCs. Specifically, the Krieg DLC at the very end there was pretty wholesome and sweet. And again, didn't always pivot to make a joke, instead let the whole moral thing that is Krieg spread its wings and kind of sink into that tension. You hear about meat bicycles every now and again, but it never took away from the whole point and meaning of the story and the tension that it was building and telling it. One thing that comes to mind is this term I've heard time and time again, and frankly I think it's been eating modern day stories alive. It's the term, we are making a story for modern audiences. AKA, we are making a story for Gen X or Gen Z. And to our surprise, every time, Gen X and Gen Z hate it more than anybody. And it never works out, like ever. Because a good story is a good story. And weird, like pseudo-pandering bullshit is something that those generations have been drowned to death with. I think this is why the Calypso twins are so fucking flat, and why so much of the story is so flat. Again, a good story is usually always a good story. Developing characters that we love and can understand, like Axton and Salvador, or Brick and Mordecai. Developing these characters we already love and want to understand more. Let me ask you this. If I were to give you a setup like this, where Scooter is driving a car filled with toxic material, and he largely had two options. Option 1, aiming that toxic-filled car down a road that leads to a nearby town. The outcome likely killing the town's populace. Or option 2, drive the car off of a ravine, trapping said hazardous materials, but also dying in the process. What do you think Scooter would choose? Okay, now let's have some fun. What happens if we put Scooter's beloved sister at the bottom of the ravine? So the question is basically, kill all of Sanctuary or kill Ellie, your beloved sister. This just became slightly frustrating to answer, because we know Scooter. Your brain is probably frustrated with the fact that we only have these two solutions. Scooter would most likely look for another method where he could save both his sister and not kill all of Sanctuary, but I think we're all leaning on that he probably would kill Sanctuary because Ellie's so sweet and that's his family. Now, what if we put the Calypso twins in this very same situation that Scooter's in? Sacrifice themselves, but in doing so would save the town, or save themselves and kill the town. Well, yeah, we can easily predict exactly what's going to happen. They would kill the town 100% of the time. But here is where they really fucked up. What if one of the Calypso twins was in that said town? AKA, would they have sacrificed themselves for their beloved sibling? Absolutely not. If you play Borderlands 3, they do give a shingle shit about each other. They absolutely would kill each other, hands down. But if you could bear with me for just one more setup, what would happen if we put Handsome Jack in this very same position, except his daughter Angel is in the town? And therein lies why Borderlands 2 is so brilliant. Similar to Scooter, it's gotten a little frustrating. The reason why it's pseudo-frustrating is because we know a lot about Jack and the various layers upon layers of narcissism and his warped sense of love for his daughter. But there's not much doubt that he loves his daughter nevertheless. Honestly, I think Jack would aim it towards the ravine, jumping out of the car at the last minute, grinding his face and arm into the pavement, dealing so much damage to himself, only to then waddle down the road to said town, grab his daughter, and kill literally everyone in that town just for good measure. That is good character development. Why did so many of us, when hearing that situation, putting Jack in that place, have so many ideas of how Jack would respond? I know we said we wouldn't talk too much about Handsome Jack, but this is a point of why I think the Calypso twins ate it so badly when it comes to winning us over. Okay, one last push of frustration, and then I swear I'm done. The one thing that constantly baffles me about Borderlands 3's situation is just how easy I think it would have been for them to knock it out of the park. Like, why the hell was Tiny Tina not a Vault Hunter? It's the easiest thing we all wanted. Krieg was one of the most beloved characters that we all have. If it was just Krieg with some funny Tiny Tina nonsense in between, I think a lot of people would be fucking locked in. Why was there no one in Borderlands 2 that made a fucking appearance in the base game like Axton? Instead, we had random assholes from Tales of the Borderlands, which we already have plenty of understanding for. They need the least amount of character development because there's a whole fucking story-driven expansion like Tales of the Borderlands that's specifically that. Axton we don't know enough about. Same thing with Salvador. Like, what is... they're gonna pop up in Borderlands 4 and it's gonna seem disingenuous. Anyways, if the formula was like tried and tested that we loved when we seen Brick for the second time, we actually got to see his character be developed. Same thing goes for Mordecai. And they built into that, like, that we understand how much Brick is just a fucking banger of a friend, just so goddamn good and wholesome, and then we understand how much Mordecai deeply loves Bloodwing. We love these characters for no real reason because they don't have much character in the game, but we spend so much time with them that we start to like them by default. And you don't put them in the game? Why were we not in the fucking cutscene? I keep coming back. Why? It was. How did that go through? This is the biggest fear I have. You clearly have some writers that, like, for Tales of Borderlands, you have something there, but who the fuck greenlit this? The only way this can kind of make sense is if there is someone at the very top who is like, I understand what Borderlands is, and we have this larger vision, and this larger vision needs to come into fruition, so you just have to fill in the blank, and don't worry about it, because this larger vision is going to be the thing that's going to make it all happen. And it's not how that works. Like, what the fuck happened? It baffles me of how they got to that point, and they're like, yes, this is great. Having two douchers just constantly tell you that you're garbage and you can't retaliate at all, and the moment that you do, it feels hollow. Oh, what about a kid who just shitting all over a character you love and lashing out at people around him? That sounds really fun to watch for 7 hours as we do things, instead of a beloved psychopath whispering in your ears about how he rips someone's eyes out with a spoon, and it's the funniest shit you've ever heard in your life, and it's also horrible because it hints at how fucking demonstrous he is. Again, what in the shit? happened? The point is, I'm just left bewildered by the choices made. And again, the only thing that can kind of make somewhat sense of this is if there was someone at the top that had like a really warped idea what Borderlands was, and they reduced Borderlands into a simple, it's just about silly memes and dick jokes essentially, or the story was like rewritten like 18 times, and then they shoehorned in influencers being the villain at the last minute because it was a hot topic or whatever. And they must have decided to dumb down the story and the complexity to try to connect with modern audiences as much as possible, taking away all the depth that they could have probably had with the Calypso twins. But like I said at the very beginning, I'm still excited for Borderlands 4. I know after all that, what, Grin? What are you talking? So long as Borderlands story isn't in the fucking negative, which is insane to me that that's even possible, then at the very least we'll probably have a lot of new Vault Hunters who have lots of possibilities. I remember back in Borderlands 1 or even 2, and the builds were everyone had 1 or 2 builds, 3 or 4 maybe at max. Salvador had fucking everything because he's a stupid fucking, people loved him for everything. Anyways, some people might fight me on this, but I think Borderlands 3 had fantastic character builds at the end of the game. Moe's specifically to me was just brilliantly well done. Unlimited bullets if you wanted, gun hose everything down to shreds, summon a fucking giant mech that can ravage the world, or have so much splash damage that you can barely see, but also chuck grenades for days. So many fun builds existed specifically for Moe's, so that's something that I'm really looking forward to, and I hope we get a Krieg adjacent like character, and hopefully some fun legendary weapons on top. But as far as my hope for Borderlands 4, I really hope they do fix the story. I hope they go back to the basics of unraveling characters that we love, show us Axton, have him be awesome, develop him as a complex character, have us root for him, introduce Salvador for the love of fucking God. Please do not relegate these characters strictly to the goddamn DLCs so that you have to buy them later to kind of pay for your nostalgia. Please give our main protagonist an internal issue that they have to then overcome that is meaningful and not just complete nonsense. And for the love of God, please make a villain charming. And not just a one-note evil villain that is the most boring thing ever. Stop making games for modern audiences. It's just like a really complex way of saying I'm a millennial and I hate the next generation and I'm going to talk down to them for fucking 10 hours. And then they expect them to like it because it's made for them. You're insane. You're insane. Jesus Christ. Make a character with depth. Jesus. No one even... There's the character... The people you're trying to win over don't even pay attention to any story in any video game anyway. Jesus. And if you wanted to win over a lot of us, bring back DLC characters. It was, we all knew you were lying. Randy, you're crazy if you think that the DLC characters didn't work. Listen, my guy, I'm trying not to call out you, but that was the most heinous sentence I've ever read ever, is when you said that, apparently people just didn't really buy or like, any of the characters. Absolute nonsense. You look at every video build, the best builds, the people who have the most affinity towards a certain character is Krieg and specifically Gage. You know what's hilarious? A lot of the community thinks Gage is dog shit because she just doesn't have very many optimal builds, not balanced well, all that stuff. People still play the fuck out of her because she's that cool. She's just a cool character concept of like a punk rock chick who lost an arm and has a death bot. What the fuck? Anyways, I know, so I think you know that, because why the hell would you make a DLC centered around a character that nobody played, like Krieg in Borderlands 4? Also, listen, last thing I'll say about this, I swear to fucking God, if you don't bring back Maya in some capacity and let Krieg and Maya be together, I'm a riot. If you let Krieg and Maya, maybe Maya gets revived, she's not a siren anymore, but she can live happily ever after with a very wholesome boy named Krieg, I'll forgive all of it. I'll forgive the shitty Calypso twins if Krieg and Maya get a happy ending, alright? Also, in the opening credits, punch Ava in the chest really hard. That's it? Okay. That would be just good for all of us. Love you so much. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully Borderlands 4 is not garbage. Love you. Bye.